Michael Jakko Jakszyk is an English musician, singer, songwriter, record producer, and actor. As of 2013, he is the current lead singer and second guitarist in King Crimson and also pursues a solo career. His work has been variously credited as Jakko, Jakko Jakszyk, and Jakko M. Jakszyk. As a solo artist, Jakszyk has released 6 albums. Prior to joining King Crimson in 2013, he had fronted multiple bands and projects over the course of 3.5 decades and had also been a member of Level 42, The Lodge and The Tangent. He has collaborated with a wide variety of musicians as well as following an extensive and well-respected career as a session musician and soundtrack producer. Biography. Roots and childhood. Jakszyk was born at Whittington Hospital in Archway, London, the son of Irish singer Peggy Curran and an unknown American airman. At 18 months of age, he was adopted by 2 European refugees who had settled in England after World War II, Polish Norbert Jakszyk and his French wife, Camille. Jakszyk grew up in Croxley Green, Hertfordshire, and would later describe his childhood as unhappy. His adoptive parents' nationalities led to an unsettled home life. He explained, "There was a lot of confusion. English was a second language for both of them, so although I could understand them both, they often couldn't understand each other. It led to all sorts of daft misunderstandings and rows." Jakszyk was frequently in conflict with Norbert, although the two would reconcile later in life. In 1977, he tracked down his birth mother Peggy, who had settled in Arkansas. He and Peggy would eventually meet in 1984. Jakszyk would later reconstruct his complex family history in an extended radio piece, The Road to Ballina. Originally aiming to become a professional footballer, Jakszyk switched his full attention to his other 2 obsessions, music and acting, after failing to win a place with the Watford boys football squad at the age of 15. As a developing musician, he was inspired equally by pop, progressive rock, and jazz fusion and developed a high level of skill as both a guitarist and singer by his mid-teens. Having joined the National Youth Theatre at 14, he maintained his acting work in parallel to his musical efforts and would eventually gain his equity card. In 1974, at the age of 16, he was kicked out of the Jakszyk family home by Norbert, and embarked on a struggling career as part-time actor and musician while working at a number of dead-end jobs to survive financially. Early bands, Soon After, 64 Spoons, and Rapid Eye Movement. By 1975, Jacko was leading an eccentric jazz rock band called Soon After. His self-confessed dictatorial tendencies reduced a bigger lineup down to a trio of 2 screaming lead guitars and a trumpet. The band reached the finals of the 1975 Melody Maker National Rock Folk Competition, coming third to a heavy metal band featuring Future Clash co-leader Mick Jones and to a big band featuring Future top-ranking saxophone sessioneer Gary Barnacle. When Soon After split up, Jacko toured with a strange little band, which supported Camel, Stackridge and Judas Priest, and then briefly joined a Tring-based band called Synthesis which played progressive rock in the Canterbury scene vein. Jacko's first significant band was 64 Spoons, which he joined as guitarist and lead singer in 1976, co-writing much of the band unregistered trademark S material. Between 1976 and 1980, 64 Spoons wrote and performed a cleverly arranged and tightly drilled blend of pop, progressive rock, jazz and comedy which led to friendships with several of the musicians who had inspired the band unregistered trademark S work, notably Dave Stewart. Boosted by an exuberant and funny live show, 64 Spoons proved popular with audiences but failed to gain an effective record deal or media breakthrough and split up in 1980. Jacko would subsequently describe them as the wrong band at the wrong time. Their only album, Landing on a Rat Column, was eventually released in 1992, many years after it was recorded. Following the split of 64 Spoons, Jacko joined Dave Stewart, Rick Biddulph and Pip Pile in the band Rapid Eye Movement. Jacko contributed several songs to the band's repertoire and co-wrote some material with Stewart. Between August 1980 and June 1981, Rapid Eye Movement toured Spain, France and the UK and recorded some material but split up due to Stewart unregistered trademark's desire to concentrate on studio work. During this period, Jacko also contributed to sessions for the former Van der Graaf generator saxophonist David Jackson unregistered trademark's album The Long Hello Volume 3. Early solo career, Stuart Gaskin, and the Lodge signing a solo deal with Chiswick Records in 1981, Jacko began to record his debut solo album, Silesia. Chiswick released 3 singles during 1982, although none were hits. A full release of Silesia was shelved at the last minute when Chiswick declared bankruptcy while the album was at the manufacturing stage. Strengthening his existing links to British art rock, Jacko began working with Peter Blegvod and would go on to play on the latter unregistered trademark's first 3 solo albums. In 1983, Jacko signed a second solo deal with Stiff Records. 3 further singles followed between 1983 and 1984 and recordings were made for a second solo album. Due for release in 1985, this album met with the same fate as Silesia. It was shelved in 1985 when Stiff Records filed for bankruptcy. Discouraged but not defeated, Jacko supplemented his income with acting work while continuing to pursue music. He continued his collaboration with Dave Stewart, contributing to his duo work with Barbara Gaskin and playing a prominent role on the Stewart-produced Neil's Heavy concept album. During this time he also met an up-and-coming drummer Gavin Harrison, Woe unregistered trademark D become one of his most frequent collaborators. Jacko's third attempt at recording a solo album was also shelved when MDMA unregistered trademark's distributor Virgin Records dropped its support for the company. In 1987, Jacko joined Peter and Christopher Blegvod, John Greaves, and Anton Fire in the short-lived New York-based band The Lodge. Session producer, The Kings of Oblivion, and Dizithmia from 1987 onwards, Jacko consolidated his work as a pop session player and budding producer, and also signed a new and remunerative publishing deal. He spent some time living and working with producer Larry Williams in Los Angeles, during which he wrote with, produced or played for Bill Myers, Shari Belafonte and Tommy Funderburker unregistered trademark's rock band What If. This period was also notable for a ludicrous footwear-related encounter with Michael Jackson and for Jacko unregistered trademark's refusal to let a then little-known Whitney Houston record one of his songs. Returning to the UK, he played with Swing Out Sister and Sam Brown, and toured with Italian singer Alice. At the same time, Jacko continued working on original projects. He teamed up with Gavin Harrison as the Kings of Oblivion in order to record the Big Fish Popcorn album. The album was a pastiche project, later described both as inspiring, and, like, the absolute worst of Frank Zappa or Ween. Both musicians took on ridiculous pseudonyms for the project and fictitious liner notes claimed that the recordings were in fact the first and second sides of a lost 1967 double LP recorded in the back of an auto shop. The Kings of Oblivion led into a more serious project when Jacko and Harrison teamed up with classical Indian singer-percussionist Pandit Dinesh and double bass player Danny Thompson on double bass. The quartet formed the world fusion project Dizithmia, which mixed jazz, folk, art rock and Indian classical music. Pandit Dinesh encouraged several highly regarded Indian classical musicians to contribute to the album, while his 3 British colleagues brought in their own friends and colleagues from the art rock world. Dizithmia's self-titled album was released in 1988 for the Antilles label, and featured a wealth of guest musical talent. The album gained good press attention but the band, for unexplained reasons, did not follow up on this. Tom Robinson, Level 42, and the Kinks while continuing his work as a session player and producer, Jacko also recorded a duo album with Tom Robinson called We Never Had It So Good. Begun in 1988, it was released in 1990 and gained very positive press attention. This brought Jacko to the attention of the highly successful Brit-funk band Level 42, who needed to replace their recently deceased guitarist Alan Murphy. Jacko's own Holdsworthian guitar style, additional instrumental skills and broad knowledge of pop music made him a natural choice. Jacko went on to play on all of Level 42 a Euro unregistered trademark live tours and promotional appearances between 1991 and 1994. However, record company politics restricted his contributions, despite being pictured on the cover of 1991 a Euro unregistered trademark guaranteed. He never actually performed on a Level 42 studio album and was never a core member of the band. For similar reasons, material which he wrote and recorded with the band with the intention of release ended up shelved when Level 42 reunited with original drummer-songwriter Phil Gould. In the event, Gould a Euro unregistered trademark second period with the band was short, and Jacko brought in Gavin Harrison as drummer to fulfill tour obligations. Jacko left Level 42 when group leaders Mark King and Mike Lindup opted to split the band up in 1994. He would later play in one of the lineups of King a Euro unregistered trademark solo bands. On the 1st January 1994 BBC radio broadcast of The Johnny Walker Show, Jacko briefly performed as a member of the Kinks, substituting for guitarist Dave Davis. No reason was given, although Ray Davies' snide comments about his brother imply another bump in their volatile relationship. The songs performed on the broadcast were Phobia, Over the Edge, Wall of Fire, and Till the End of the Day No. 2. It's ironic that Jacko performed with Tom Robinson and the Kinks, considering the animosity between Robinson and Ray Davies that developed during the aborted sessions for Robinson's nascent folk trio Kafar Copyright Society, that Davis was producing for the Kinks' short-lived Kong imprint. Solo artist, art rock journeyman, and radio documentarian. Following Level 42's disbandment, Jacko joined forces with three former members of Japan, Richard Barbieri, Mick Karn and Steve Jansen, who were considering forming another band following the disintegration of their post-Japan project Raintree Crow and the end of their work in the No Man live band. The musical combination of the four players worked well and led to a lasting musical friendship, but did not result in a full-time band project. Instead, Jacko resumed his solo career. Signing a new record deal with the progressive art rock label Resurgence, he released the Kingdom of Dust EP in 1994. All four of the EP tracks came from his work with Jansen, Barbieri and Karn. In 1995, Jacko released a new solo album, Mustard Gas and Roses, on Resurgence, featuring a mixture of sharp, intelligent pop songs and progressive art rock instrumentals. The album featured further contributions from Karn and Jansen, as well as from Sam Brown, B.J. Cole and Jacko Euro unregistered trademark Dizithmia colleagues Danny Thompson and Gavin Harrison. In 1996, Resurgence released a Jacko compilation album called Are My Ears On Wrong?, which compiled material from Jacko Euro unregistered trademark second and third solo albums. Since 1991, Jacko had been sketching out plans for an autobiographical radio piece called The Road to Ballina, a mixed music and spoken word project exploring his own family history and his bittersweet search for his birth mother. In 1995 this went into production. In addition to Jacko's own account of growing up as an adoptee, the work included extensive contributions from both of his adoptive parents relating to their often harrowing wartime experience in Europe as refugees and conscripts and as people under occupation. Several of the recordings were conceptually arranged while the music tracks featured Gavin Harrison and two of Jacko's former Level 42 colleagues, Mark King and Gary Barnacle. The Road to Ballina was broadcast on BBC Radio 3 in December 1996, and Resurgence released a slightly shorter and compressed version on CD in early 1997. Significantly, this was the first of Jakko Euro unregistered trademark albums to be credited to the longer name of Jakko M Jakszyk, under which Hey Euro unregistered trademark D release all of his future solo work. In March 1999, BBC Radio 3 broadcast a second Jacko radio piece called The Church of Lanza, which used many of the same techniques as The Road to Ballina. The piece dealt with the nature of fame and celebrity, focusing on the deification of stars who die young, and used the life of Mario Lanza as its focal point. The piece incurred the wrath of a number of outraged Mario Lanza fans, and remains unreleased on commercial CD. During this period, Jacko continued to work as a guest and collaborator on the music of others. Between 1994 and 1999 he made significant contributions to albums by Akiko Kobayashi, Peter Blegvod, Gavin Harrison, Pip Pyle, Seiro Cosentino and Richard Barberia. Unregistered trademark S project Indigo Falls. A particularly notable effort was his contribution to Mick Karn's 1996 album The Tooth Mother, on which he displayed his full versatility by playing saxophone, shawm and Indian dulcimer. 21st Century Schizoid Band, The Bruised Romantic Glee Club, and The Tangent. In 2002, Jacko was instrumental in the establishment of the 21st Century Schizoid Band, which specialized in performing the 1960s and 1970s repertoire of King Crimson and featured several ex-members associates of the band, Ian MacDonald, Mel Collins, Peter Giles and Michael Giles. Jacko fronted the band, playing guitar and singing. Over a 5-year period, the 21st Century Schizoid Band played occasional tours in the UK, North America and Japan. The band was well received by audiences, and released several live albums plus a concert DVD. Its work came to a halt in 2005 due to lack of funding and difficulties in finding worthwhile arrangements for tours. Wallace's death in 2007 finally put an end to the project. By this point, Jacko had spent several years assembling another solo album, which was eventually released as The Bruised Romantic Glee Club in 2006. Hailed as his most accomplished work to date, the double album featured 1 disc of new Jacko songs and 1 disc of his reinterpretations of works by musicians who'd influenced him. The album included a remarkable sweep of guest performers assembled from the full length of Jacko's career and associations, as well as contributions from long-standing allies Lyndon Connor, Gavin Harrison and Dave Stewart. The guests included Danny Thompson and Pandit Dinesh, Mark and Nathan King, and King Crimson members Robert Fripp, Mel Collins and Ian Wallace. Hugh Hopper and Clive Brooks also made an appearance, playing on a Soft Machine cover version initially recorded for a compilation in 2000. Despite some highly complimentary reviews, the original 2006 release of The Bruised Romantic Glee Club was blighted by bad luck and the collapse of the record company releasing it. Eventually, the album was re-released on the King Crimson associated record label Panegyric in 2009. In 2007, Jacko joined British progressive rock band The Tangent for their album Not As Good As The Book. Following 1 guest appearance and 1 full live show at the Summer's End Festival in September 2008, he resigned from the band. Jakszyk, Fripp and Collins, and recruitment into King Crimson. Since 2002, Jacko unregistered trademark S connections to the musicians in and around King Crimson had grown closer. In January 2010, Jacko and Fripp began recording ambient instrumental pieces on a casual basis. This eventually developed into a full song-based problem involving Mel Collins. Gavin Harrison and King Crimson bass player Tony Levin were brought in to complete the recordings, which were released in May 2011 on the Panegyric label as an album called A Scarcity of Miracles credited to Jaksyk, Fripp and Collins. At the time, King Crimson was in a dormant phase, but the involvement of 3 current band members, 1 former band member and a previously separate singer-songwriter in this new project led to speculation that King Crimson was about to reactivate and would recruit Jacko as a new frontman. Initially Fripp demurred these suggestions. In an online diary entry, he described the trio as an endeavor which has the Crimson gene, but is not quite KC. It is a Crimson project, although this was not the intention. Given the gene pool, I suppose this counts as evolution. If JFC were named as a project, which would be legitimate IMO, then all manner of expectations, categorizations, limitations and dopey commentaries would be launched to deter the ears of innocent audience. Fripp went on to comment that the origin of the trio was in fact a proposed but abandoned Project 7 and described the forthcoming A Scarcity of Miracles as one of my favoritist albums, of those where I am a determining element. A Scarcity of Miracles was met with a good critical response and a mixed welcome from the King Crimson fanbase. Due to Fripp's unregistered trademark S retirement from live performance, the release was not supported by a concert tour. Fripp a unregistered trademark. Formal retirement from the music industry in 2012 stifled most of the remaining rumors. On September 24, 2013, Fripp made the surprise announcement that he was launching a new lineup of King Crimson, with its first tour planned for September 2014. Shortly afterwards the personnel list was announced, with Jacko confirmed as lead singer and second guitarist. The new King Crimson lineup continued and expanded the Scarcity of Miracles project personnel. Other members besides Fripp and Jacko were Mel Collins, 3 members from the 2009 Crimson Band, and another new recruit, American drummer Bill Rieflin. Work in comedy and acting. Jacko has had a sideline in comedy work parallel to his solo career and has spent some time as a member of the Actors Union Equity. His work as a character comedian has included playing the demented but fleet-fingered Italian guitarist Eduardo, a sidekick to comedy music duo Rare Sex. As Eduardo, Jacko appeared on the French and Saunders TV show in 1987, as well as being part of Rare Sex's subsequent theatre show at the King's Head in Islington and 3-week stint at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival. Jacko also impersonated Lindsey Buckingham in the French and Saunders TV parody of Fleetwood Mac. In the BBC TV movie In Dreams, Jacko makes a cameo appearance as Michael Jackson's recording engineer. He has also appeared in the BBC sitcom Birds of a Feather. Under the pseudonym of Grandmaster Jellytot, Jacko produced the novelty hip-hop single The Stutter Rap. This record was a sizable chart hit in 1987. Musical style. Jacko has followed a variety of musical approaches. He has increasingly become known in his solo work in particular, for blending elements of well-crafted songwriter pop with aspects of progressive rock. While best known as a guitarist and singer, he can also perform on a variety of keyboard, string and wind instruments from various cultures, ensuring that his work has drawn on assorted elements of jazz, art rock, classical, Irish, Eastern European, Indian and Chinese music. His soundtrack work draws on a variety of sources as well, although he has commented that very few have a distinct Jacko stamp. Personal life. Jacko is married to model Amanda Giles, the daughter of King Crimson drummer Michael Giles. They have 2 children and live in Hertfordshire. Discography. Solo singles and EPs. The Night Has 1,000 Eyes / Something Tells Me, Straining Our Eyes / Fall to Pieces, Grab What You Can / Tell Me / Would I Be the Same / I'd Never Have Known, Grab What You Can / I'd Never Have Known. Chiswick Records Dice 14, Dangerous Dreams / Opening Doors, I Can't Stand This Pressure / Living on the Edge, I Can't Stand This Pressure / Living on the Edge / Cover Up, Who's Fooling Who / A Grown Man Immersed in Tin Tin, Kingdom of Dust, Resurgence RES 101 CD, 1994, Albums, Silesia, Chiswick Records, CWKL 3021, 1982, Mustard Gas and Roses, Resurgence, RES 103 CD, 1994 Are My Ears On Wrong? Resurgence, RES 110 CD, 1995. Solo The Road to Bellina, Resurgence RES 127 CD, 1997, The Bruised Romantic Glee Club, ICNY, ICN CD 2007, Waves Sweep the Sand, self-released, JMJ Extension 01, 2009. Albums as group member The Lodge, Smell of a Friend, Until Is, AN 8711, 1987, The Kings of Oblivion, Big Fish Popcorn, Bam Caruso, KIRIO 64, 1987, Dizithmia, Until Is New Directions Island Records, ANCD 8727, 1988, Tom Robinson Jakko M. Jakszyk, We Never Had It So Good, Musidisc, 106662, 1990, 64 Spoons, Landing on a Rat Column, Freshly Cut Records, FCR001, 1991 21st Century Schizoid Band, Official Bootleg Volume 1. Self-released, 2002 21st Century Schizoid Band, In Concert and Live in Japan as Double CD, 21st Century Schizoid Band, Live in Japan ICNY, ICN DVD 002, 2005 21st Century Schizoid Band, Pictures of a City, Live in New York, ICNY, ICNCD 2006, 2006, The Tangent, Not As Good As the Book, Inside Out Music, EUMZ 291/SPV 79710 DCD, 2008, Jakszyk Fripp Collins, A Scarcity of Miracles, A King Crimson Project, Panegyric. B004UHPU5E, 2011. Notable guest appearances and session performances David Jackson, The Long Hello Volume 3, But Records, 1982, Guitars, Bass Guitar, Synthesizer, Vocals, Peter Blegvod, The Naked Shakespeare, Virgin Records, 1983, Guitar, Neil's Heavy Concept Album, WEA, 1984 Horrible Electric Musician Heavy and Psychedelic Guitarist, Peter Blegvod, Nights Like These, Virgin Records, 1985, Guitar, What If, RCA, 1987 A Euro Guitar, Swing Out Sister, It's Better to Travel, Mercury Records, 1987, Unspecified Help, Peter Blegvod, Downtime, Virgin Records, 1988, Guitar, Backing Vocals, Sam Brown, Stop. Mercury Records, 1988, Guitar, John Greaves, David Cunningham, Greaves, Cunningham, Eva Records, WWCX 2030, 1991, Vocals, Micah Paris, Whisper a Prayer, 4th and Broadway, BRLP 591, 514 776-1, 1993, Guitar, Holy, Under the Monkey Puzzle Tree, Resurgence, RES 105 CD, 1994, Guitar, Flute, Backing Vocals, Peter Blegvod with John Greaves and Chris Cutler, Just Woke Up, Rhea Megacorp, Rhea PB2, 1995, Guitars, Mick Karn, The Tooth Mother, CMP Records, CMP CD 1008. 1996 A Euro Guitars, Shaum, Dilruba, Flute, Tenor Saxophone, Keyboards, Programming, Sampler, Indigo Falls, Medium Productions Limited, MPCD 5, 1997 A Euro Guitars and Low Whistle, Seiro Cosentino, Ones and Zeros, Consorzio Produttori Indipendenti Resurgence, 300-479-2/RS129 CD, 1997, Vocals, Gavin Harrison, Sanity and Gravity, Resurgence, RES 128 CD, 1997, Keyboards, Guitar, Vocals, Whistle, Pit Pile, 7-Year Itch, Bo Seprant, VP 198 CD, 1998, A Euro Guitar, Flute, Production, Lead Vocals on 3 tracks. Stephen Wilson, The Raven That Refused to Sing, KSCOPE, 2013, Vocals on Luminol, and The Watchmaker. Soundtrack work, Jacko has written and performed title and incidental music for the following television programs: Joe Brand's Through the Cake Hole, Chef, Hard Cases, Clive James Postcard from Bombay, In Dreams, Birds of a Feather, Rugby World Cup coverage, various documentaries and series for the Discovery Channel and Animal Planet. He has also composed orchestral scores for the CD-ROM games World War II and the War in the Pacific. References. External links, Jakko M. Jakszyk at MySpace, previous official homepage, old front page with quicker access to general information.